Hi everyone, it's Sarah here. Welcome to the meeting. I think Andy and Toby are just setting up, so we won't be a moment, okay?
Which way do you want me to face when I say hello? Over this way, Andy.
Yes, that one.
Camera's here. That one. That one. Well, hello everybody. Good afternoon. It's great to see some familiar faces, and I'm really impressed. Hi, Dan. And by the growing list of names as well. I'll mutter along like this until 2 o'clock, and then we'll make a start. I think Sarah's able to share the agenda with you. Thank you very much. Timekeeping as well. Sarah's been able to share the agenda with you. Some of the timings are approximate in this agenda, but what I can promise you is that we've got a packed agenda, and we're hosting it from this Advanced Procedural Skills Centre here in the simulation suite for Canterbury Christ Church University at the Rowan Williams Court, which is on the Medway campus. There is another simulation suite in the new Verena Homes building at Canterbury, of course. So my plan is, in a moment, I'm going to give Toby, our simulation technician who's operating all the equipment, a bit of a shock by standing up, and I'm going to walk around this room and just give you an overview of the equipment that we do provide in the Advanced Procedural Skills Centre. So bear with me as I attempt to stand up. Thanks, Toby. So coming over this way, first of all, this is the Symbionic Surgical Science Endo Mentor. Okay.
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Sorry, you went off the screen. Sorry, Andy.
Oh, that's okay. I often do that. If you can't find me, look for the short, fat guy with the Father Ted hairdo.
We can
just
see you now, Andy. It's a big screen.
I've spotlit it for everyone. Might make it easier.
Yeah, thanks.
Say again. Paul, you offering advice on?
I just
Anyway.
said I spotlit your image for everybody, so everyone sees it big.
Well done, Paul.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So in the spotlight, showing you the Symbionic Surgical Science Endo Mentor piece of kit. So this is a really powerful piece of equipment that you can use for upper and lower GI, bronchoscopy, and urology. There's a huge range of modules that are available, from training modules to patient case histories and procedures that you can carry out. And there's a vast range of these that are available. We've bought like the basic set. So we've got EBUS basics and various other training modules. And this is all sat on a cloud learning management system, which means that the supervisor can access the trainees' records from wherever they can get online, basically, and survey their progress and how they're getting on. And each trainee has an individual portfolio, and you can data mine this for a whole range of statistics about the trainee's performance. And then it's up to you, really, how you deal with those statistics and how you use them. So I think we were the first people in the UK to have the complete set of bronchoscopy, upper and lower GI and GU, and it's here available for you. There is a little brother or sister for this rather vast piece of kit, which is portable, and the idea is that this will be loaned to you. So it is currently on loan. I can't show it to you. It's on loan at a trust now, being used now. And the idea is that you can come in here for your in-depth, high-resolution training session, but then you can top up and refresh your skills every morning if you want to on the portable piece of kit. So this is the Endo Mentor. This is the Angio Mentor, and I'll be absolutely honest with you. I have no idea how this works, but the clinicians tell me that it's really very good. And you can see the screens here that show the live image intensifier images for interventional radiography, coronary and neuro. Again, there's a whole panoply of different modules that you can use this equipment for. And again, it has a little brother, which is a smaller model than this, with one leg that is portable. So again, that can come to your trust and be used in companionship with this module. And again, all the trainee data sits in the learning management system. Carrying on around, this is clearly the laparoscopic mentor. And again, it has a little brother, and I might get to show you that in a moment as Toby follows me around the room. This has a complete suite of laparoscopic surgical procedures. Again, you can data mine this as much as you like. Again, there's the portable version. Again, they're all on the learning management system, but this one has an added aspect to it, which is virtual reality. So you can, and Toby has set this up so I could actually demonstrate this to you, but I'm not going to. But the operator puts on the virtual headset and is transported into a virtual operating theatre and interacting with the staff in that virtual operating theatre whilst continuing to perform the procedure in real life, so to speak, with the equipment here. And I think that we're a project. Our definition and purpose is as a project. And for me, what this is about is it's about giving simulationists and procedural educators and subject matter experts the chance to see the possibilities. And maybe they think, well, that's okay. I don't like it that much, but it's given me a brilliant idea. And it's the brilliant ideas that we're going to be particularly fostering in what we do. I'm going to go back over there for a moment because I just want to, in this yellow box here, and if you came to our stakeholder event the other day, in this yellow box here, we have one of two sets of smart glass type equipment that can be used for live streaming of consultations. It comes with a stethoscope, excuse me, an otoscope and a dermoscope. So you can use a really powerful pedagogic online platform to run live streaming of consultations, which could be live or simulated, could be actual or simulated, of course. So these are all opportunities for expanding placement and placement opportunities. Finally, back in the traditional world of simulation, this is Victoria. Victoria is the GOMARD obstetric mannequin. Other obstetric mannequins exist. Like most mannequins, if you don't actually do interventions with them, they go off to sleep. So currently she's dormant, but she can be programmed to give birth. So the big mannequin gives birth to a little mannequin and so on and so forth. But again, we have an added component to what Victoria has to offer us in that Victoria is supported by an augmented reality platform using a Microsoft HoloLens headset, and then the team can look through skin and muscle and see the lie of the uterus, see what a shoulder dystocia, to use a classic example, actually looks like, see what changing the angle of the pelvis actually does for that fetal pelvic alignment. And so it's a really powerful addition to the usual work that a mannequin can do for you. And in addition, that augmented reality component can be taken away from the mannequin. So you can run augmented reality events in a classroom, and you can access all the pedagogic data of that in any situation you like. So that's your whistle-top tour. I've gone past the portable kit in these big boxes. The boxes are sort of frighteningly big, but the kit itself isn't as big, that you can take away. Have I covered everything, do you think, Toby? Yeah, Toby's nodding. I've covered everything. So this is our Advanced Procedural Skills Centre. And before I do go and sit down, I want to add that it is in the simulation suite in Rowan Williams Court. Rowan Williams Court offers you 2 tiered lecture theatres, a range of seminar rooms, classrooms. There's a refectory, so on and so forth. There's even a certain amount of car parking. So we have the opportunity to run complete courses that focus on the kit in here and the procedural skills, but can expand to look at broader team working aspects and human behavior and performance, and can do that in a place where all the usual facilities that you'd hope to find in a university are available. And so that's the offer. Then it's just a case of timetables and matching empty rooms with demand. Thank you, Toby. So this is the bit of this afternoon I'm really looking forward to, I'll be honest. This is my opportunity to introduce or reintroduce you to Professor Ali Bukhari, who, as the previous simulation dean for Kent, Surrey and Sussex, drove this project into existence and helped it along the way, and I'm indebted to him. Welcome.
Oh, very kind words, Andy. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. It's almost like a bit of a podcast or webinar or something we're about to do. But it's so nice to see so many people on screen and some familiar faces amongst them. Andy has asked me to come and offer some reflections, and it sounds very post-retirement sort of thing to do. And indeed, I have retired, but still working 4 days a week doesn't feel like much of a retirement. Going back to the simulation and simulation project, I think, if I'm completely honest, it's a jewel in the crown for the Kent, Surrey and Sussex, I would say. And I don't exaggerate because I've got no extra grind now, but I think it is such a valuable thing that we have that I would urge whoever is now in charge to really protect and grow it. When I started as a associate dean in 2016, there was definitely simulation going on. It was going on in individual organizations, individual trusts. There were definitely very enthusiastic colleagues. They wanted to do their best. They wanted to support each other. But there wasn't really an organized and managed network. And so one of the first things that we did after Professor Dewhurst, Joe's predecessor, handed me the slightly thorny thing called simulation, was that we tried to organize ourselves. Now, those of you who know me know that I'm not a great organizer. but I do try my best. And luckily, I came across Andy and his team, who were more than willing to engage in supporting the organizational part of it. And then since then, the partnership has hopefully remained strong. So Simulation Network, which was fairly loose earlier on, became a much more formal and organized activity. It still included a lot of enthusiastic people. People would be like to share what they were doing. But I think we also tried to introduce an element of discipline, an element of formally sharing resources, until we were lucky enough to actually have a resource, because initially we had no resource whatsoever. Which could be called regional, and I use the word regional in the KSS sense because I know the region has now become a much bigger region, Southeast, which is great, obviously. And we were lucky enough to have some resource that we invested initially with the Canterbury Christchurch University, and we were able to get some of your time, and luckily afterwards some administration time. And as you know, things have grown from then on, and our colleagues around the KSS have become so much more engaged and ingenious and inventive about simulation and human factors. One of the things that I always remember is that when we started simulation was primarily a secondary acute care activity. It was very much a hospital-based thing. And I'm so proud to say that it no longer is. It no longer is a hospital-only activity. Of course, our hospitals are important and they need everything to support them. But we know the primary care simulation has taken off in a big way. The mental health simulation has gone from strength to strength. Undergraduate, and when I started as an associate dean for Kent, as we know, is the poorest county amongst the KSS. It had virtually all the hospitals were struggling in one way or the other, either financially or in terms of performance. The training experience wasn't very good. We didn't have a medical school. We didn't have a natural center for the county to say this was our center of excellence. So in some ways, you could see that as a disadvantage. But the advantage, the positive spin of that was that we had to go out. We couldn't just sit in one hospital and say, this is our, I don't know, Barts, or this is our UCL, and that's it. And we had to get out, and we had to engage with people. We had to take our education further away and also help improve what we had. And luckily, we were also able to host a medical school between Canterbury Christchurch University and University of Kent, which has really been amazingly good for our county. And we know the simulation in undergraduate education is very strong, very big, very keen, and that's absolutely wonderful. Sorry.
It's all right. I was just going to, if I interrupt just for a moment.
Sure.
I'm reminded of the very first, and I hope I'm not taking the wind from the next thing you're going to say, but the very first minor conference that we hosted right here in this building. And it was opened by the Dean of the Faculty. And we had Chris Holland, the Dean of the Medical School, speak, and Dr. Alex Lang, who is a senior figure now in the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors, and was in the Human Factors Department, the very powerful Human Factors Department at University of Nottingham. That's right. Came here to this little conference to launch, really, I don't think it's too unfair to say launch, the Chartered Institute Ergonomics and Human Factors white paper on human factors for health and care here in this building at our first little conference. So that was maybe a real sort of change in amplitude of what we were doing. I'm being asked to remind you, please, if you could turn off your cameras. No, Toby, that doesn't mean you. It means
So yes, absolutely. I think that was a step change, really, and absolutely that is the case. But then, just as we were getting going, COVID happened. I know everybody says and blames COVID for everything these days. Politicians are very good at blaming it for, from small boats to the failure in the NHS and whatever. But COVID did disrupt our flow, but I would say it was also something that allowed a lot of innovation to take place. And if I'm also honest, the funding that was little and drying up, we were able to get some more funding into simulation, not least because our poor junior doctors could not get any study leave. So there was some slush left over, and that really was something that we could invest back into our simulation education, and that has really helped. Technology advanced significantly. What was there was escalated. So artificial reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, all of that really made a real impact, we felt, at that stage. I mean, I think technology is great. We mustn't overplay our hand with technology. There are some things you can't do with technology, but in this case, technology did definitely took us where we wouldn't have otherwise gone. So that was really good. And then post COVID, recovery was quite a big thing. And so again, simulation came to in its own. And you have.
I was just going to say, I'm reminded of your comment about how simulation began really in hospitals, in secondary, tertiary care, and in critical care. And I often describe it, if you indulge me for a moment, that critical care and perhaps particularly anaesthesia dropped a big rock into the pool of health and care, but the waves of that rock have reached the extremities of the pool of health and care now, and we're really pleased that in this region we have people from palliative care, a superb primary care network, all sorts of things which are out of hospital. And I think that the impact of the COVID disruption and this developing spread of simulation across health and care have it has been a serious disruption, and we're still shaking out from that. The bits that we will keep and the bits that maybe we don't need to keep until we're in another lockdown or whatever that might be. And this room and this equipment here isn't just for times of crisis when trainees can't get practice in the usual manner. It's an opportunity for better levels of practice used in the right way. So we're still, I would argue, still sorting out how this will actually shake out eventually for the benefit of staff and patients and the community.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think there's a tendency to wait until a crisis comes along and then to suddenly do some stuff, which did happen and was successful in part during COVID. But I think it's better also to prepare yourself and continue to develop at pace rather than become stuck. And I think we are going through a phase, having gone through a phase where there was a lot of funding, a reasonable amount of funding, to a phase now where the funding has become tighter. I think I would just say to all of our colleagues, your work is amazing. Please be proud of yourself, seek more funding, seek more resources, because if people don't understand what simulation can do, human factors can do, then I think they just need educating. That's all there is to it. To me, healthcare, and even if you look at the national patient safety strategy that came out relatively recently, it talks about an intersection of systems-based impact on patient safety and human-based impact on safety. And it's at that intersection that simulation and human factor sits. So in my mind, simple mind, I'm not an expert. To me, it looks like that when we talk about systems, you can depict the system through simulation. And when you talk about human impact, human factors, you can use human factors training. So both are really important to improve outcomes. I would say both for our patients, but also for our learners, because it's such an important thing. And our organizations, you talked about ergonomics, and it's a potential that hasn't been fulfilled yet across our country and certainly in our area. So I think there's a lot that can be done. I don't want to finish this without giving a bit of a shout out to my colleagues, without whom we would have got nowhere. Chief amongst them, of course, is Andy, who has been at it, I can't even remember, 5 years, 6 years at least, maybe even longer in this project. We're very lucky to have Sarah, who, as you know, organizes all these meetings, plus takes significant part in the Southeast Conference. So Sarah is Keeling Smith. She's online. So thank you, Sarah. Toby, who's our latest addition, he's off camera, but he's a simulation technician. I think we call him a teenager because he's still a teenager. He's 19. So welcome to the team. I know you're relatively new, but welcome. And of course, James Barber, who is not here, unfortunately, because he hasn't been very well recently, as far as I know. But on top of that, online, we have Rosie, who I think has been a real force for good. Rosie came along after COVID, had a lot of things to organize, and she just gets on with it really, with energy and thoughtfulness. So that is really, really good as well. And I'm really grateful for that. Jackie, I saw Jackie's face somewhere, Jackie Knight, who's been running the Multi-Professional Fellows program, which has both supported and provided fellows for simulation, as we're talking about simulation, but amongst them lots of other things as well. I mustn't forget some of the first colleagues we had, the first fellows we had. We had two fellows, I think, very, very first one. We had Phil Gurnett, who was our simulation lead at Dartford, and you stole him from us. But it was a good steal. And he has now gone on to lead the University of Greenwich's Simulation Center and running a master's program, I understand, which is really good. Lauren Philpott and then Isabel Clark, some of our first fellows, done a deal of good work and research, which is just amazing. But also not to forget our primary care colleagues. Jane came later to this, but has been a real force for good and has driven primary care simulation. You know, I mean, I think you were saying earlier on, it's national level work, the primary care work that Jane and her colleagues are doing. Kathy Goodbarn, who is a hospice colleague down South Coast. Dr. Minali, the avatar man, as I remember him as, created the mental health avatars, which were just amazing. And his colleague Joy Clift has just been, just out of the room. So this is not something that we could have done ourselves. We had all your good people out there pushing in the same direction and, helping each other. And that has really been the spirit really with which. So I just like to just say, my main reflection is there are so many good people in this region. We just need to make sure that they are supported in all sorts of ways. I know Peter Anderson has taken over as a simulation lead. I know Peter well. He's an amazing man. He's going to be doing a great job. So I'm very hopeful with Joe's support and Peter's support that you'll go from strength to strength. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to applaud. I'm going to. I applaud on behalf of everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for all you did as well.
You're very welcome.
Continue to do. So the agenda's back up, and we're coming up to Rosie's moment. So I'm going to introduce Rosie as the simulation and tell and patient safety lead for NHS South East and driver of funding and progress in so many different ways. Rosie.
Thanks, Andy. Hi, everybody. Oh, I'm echoing. Is it just me echoing, or I don't know? Anyway, I've got a couple of slides, so I was just going to share my screen for a moment, but I've only got 3 slides, so I won't go on too long. There we go. Can you see it? And just to say how lovely to see you, Ali. Really great to see you, even virtually. It's been ages, and we've missed you. So I was going to just give a quick few-minute overview of the regional update, because as you know, we've had this merger with NHS Digital and Health Education England into NHS England, and so I am at NHS England now, as Andy said, the lead for simulation and patient safety in the Workforce Directorate. But however, we're still in transition. We're in phase 3, they call it, of the next transition, which I think means that there may still be movement in posts and roles, and particularly at the senior level. I'm really not quite sure. But what's fantastic is I get to keep this job that I love very, very much. So I'll be around at least for a year or so. So this next slide, in absence of, any, because we're still transitioning, in absence of any sort of national strategic direction at the moment, I thought I'd look outside of the NHS and see what I can find. And I got this slide. I thought it was just out of interest, actually, from a very senior colleague at KPMG, who they inform government, whichever government we will end up with, a general elections likely at some point. So I did think it was helpful to see that this is what's informing government. And I am really pleased that for the first time in ages, the global workforce shortage is up there as #1, because it does feel at HE we've been banging in that drum for so long, but it hasn't, don't think we felt our voices were really heard. So I'm so glad it's there. But these other things, like the increased pressure for productivity, waiting list conservatively, if we progress without doing anything, could go up to 7 years. Nice to see a nod to our work here, uneven digital and AI adoption. I'm sure Sim fits under that, and Tim as well. So these are the kind of things, the key priorities for government, whichever one we end up with in the next few years. Yeah, I think they're all pretty obvious and they make sense to me. I hope they do to you. This next slide, because this is my area, the money, trying to get, the money so that, I can harness your brilliant brains and make stuff happen, and, make things happen, like the Advanced Procedural Skills Centre that we've just shown around. And so this is my area. And we have 153 billion for NHS England funding, which seems a crazy amount of money. And it is, really, but there should be scope in there to play with stuff. And I think if you see this bit here that I'm pointing at now, 3.8 billion for Service Development Fund, and also the Elective Services Recovery Fund, that's where I see is where I can sort of strike, if you like, and see if I can come up with some good ideas with your help and your input into getting business cases approved to, develop the service. We cannot, it's categorical. We can't stand still. We can't do more of the same. We need to progress with our simulation work. And also, look here, 2.2 billion in litigation. My goodness, I'm going to take as my strategy for the next year, if I can, to see if I can get my business cases to address reducing some of that 2.2 billion. Like if we can do this, well, then litigation and maternity services will reduce by blah, 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 blah. I try to apply a bit of spin doctor to my work to see, how I can be more persuasive and also link to the money very, cohesively, so finance directors get it. I just wanted to say a little bit more, just this final slide, because I didn't want it all to be all doom and gloom and uncertain, really, but to just have a reflection on our strengths and opportunities that are coming up. Because, let me tell you, our network, the KSS network and now the South East network have a brilliant national reputation. Honestly, we do. And you should really pat yourselves all on the back and recognise that, the national teams look at us and think, wow, South East have really, creme de la creme getting there. Our conferences and presence at ASPE, they're brilliant. They're brilliant. And even our Dr. Jane Broom, who I can see here, is now, you're in the executive board for ASPE, you know, for primary care, which is brilliant because we didn't have that before. And so that's what our team in the Southeast have done. Our proven track record of delivery. Now, this really does bode well for future funding opportunities. I don't know when they'll be, but when they do come up, we have a proven track record of delivery, and we should be really proud of that. And people have faith in us and they trust us. The multi-professional SIM fellowship program, Jackie's going to talk about that in a minute, but absolutely brilliant. Thank you, massive thank you to Professor Joe Schramm for funding cohort 3 this year. And we have our celebratory events on the 14th of March. The other bits, well, I don't know, I was running out of things really, but I think given the kind of the landscape at the moment, we have a lot to look forward to, a lot to be proud of. And I'm certainly very busy in spite of all of that. Let me stop sharing now. Can I come back and see you? So that's kind of where I am. That's kind of, I think, the best I could really do with, hang on, stop sharing. With the uncertainty. How's that, Andy? Is that what you were expecting?
Thanks, Rosie. Yes, it's almost exactly what I was hoping for. And I think that we will continue to address the problems that we can. I want to take a moment just to take my virtual hat off to our colleagues in clinical practice just for a moment, because I'm a desk jockey now. I'm a desk jockey and the internet wrangler, and I am so indebted to the people who are keeping the NHS and all the rest of it turning over. So I wanted to take a moment to say that. And I think that you and I are very much agreed that it's a privilege and also a responsibility to do what we can towards the ultimate objective of improving health and care for the community we all ultimately serve. And I would just like, having said that, if I may, to add one small item to your agenda, which is to pick up the work that we did with the SIM EPR, electronic patient record system. This was something that I tried to launch in my previous job here as faculty director for simulation for the university, and couldn't get going. And then eventually we discovered that Aaron had done what I was trying to get done and done it better. And it's a great piece of kit. And you funded a really significant project to look at it across the 6 ICBs of our region. We had a centre that was piloting SIM EPR in each of the ICBs, and we have to, I'm calling on everybody present to help us bring the evaluation of that project together. We'll be talking to those 6 centres. But meanwhile, if SIM EPR is news to you, then there is a group called Sim and Skills. You can find them on social media quite easily, and they have a webinar with, I'm just looking at the chat, thank you very much. They have a webinar with Aaron Thind, the creator of SIM EPR, and I know he's talking with Alex at IRIS, and there's going to be opportunities for SIM EPR and the IRIS simulation authoring platform to work together and integrate what they do together. And just these little items mark great steps in progress in the platform that we offer simulationists. And I'm really pleased that we've played a significant part in the growth, both for IRIS in the UK and for SIM EPR. I don't think it's unfair to say that. So thank you, Rosie. Sorry to piggyback on the end of your presentation. Okay, So I'm just going to, Jackie, is it okay before we start? There is conversation in the chat.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sort of like open it out to the floor for the moment and just ask if people want to speak either about the conversation, the subjects that Ali Bukhari raised, or anything since, then we can open the floor for a chat before we go to Jackie, who's patiently waiting.
Jane's got her hand up.
Yes, Jane.
Hi everyone. Firstly, just to say it's so lovely to see everybody, particularly Ali. It's been a long time. And also, yes, yeah, really appreciate the shout outs as well. So thank you very much for those. So like a lot of people sort of said, I mean, we have got the only currently multi-professional primary care based simulation faculty here in KSS, but we're hearing well, we're facing, obviously everyone in the NHS is facing huge difficulties with funding, and primary care simulation potentially is at risk in KSS. And yeah, I don't think it's one of those things that can be answered, but I suppose I was reaching out to all of my colleagues sort of across KSS, and like a lot of people have alluded to, it's not just, you know, this is work we're doing in primary care, this is innovative, this has got huge scope, but we're also looking at, you know, how we can work with secondary care colleagues, looking at the interface. There are so many different sort of aspects to it. And so I suppose it was a little bit of appeal for help, a little bit if anyone had any fantastic ideas of where we could tap into any bids or grants or anything, or even as I think I saw Debbie Kay there as well, and some of the MTW team, and when the original work got going, because they just phoned me up and sort of said, we've got some kit that we don't want, can we give it to you? And that's actually what got our sim stuff going. So so thanks Debbie and Andrea. So, you know, anything like that, I would have to say we are not proud in primary care, but we are slightly desperate, or I'm slightly desperate, because the work has been, you know, phenomenal, and I really want to make sure that we continue this, but I think we may need a little bit more support. But I also appreciate that we've had huge amounts of support, because none of this would have happened without Andy, without Ali, without Rosie, and also with Jackie and I as well, and the support for our fellows as well. And apologies if I've missed anyone as well, because I'm sure there's other people out there.
Thanks, Jane. Kathy?
Thanks very much, and thanks very much for the update. It was good to see Ali, though he probably doesn't recognize me. I've just been one of your conferences. They're not small, Andy. They're perfectly formed. Rosie, Rosie, I wanted to ask. I did put it on the chat because it's kind of linked to what Jane is saying, which is that, you know, we've been going around, you know, developing these projects with the existing funding. And what we are finding is that the funding streams are being redesigned. And, you know, so it's clear that the money is there, but it needs a business case behind it. And I'm a clinician. I'm sort of part desk jockey, part clinician, who's had no training in writing business cases for these projects. And that, I think, is where the development lies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm always happy to help. But business cases, that is my job. And I've written hundreds and I've read hundreds, and I've had quite a lot approved. So when there is money, I'll be ready to strike. But if you ever want to do that thing of, you know, we'll get together and you talk and I'll type and we'll put it together, something really great, use me as your resource. I'm not a clinician. I'm not an academic. I'm a businesswoman and a strategist type person. So use me.
Well, that's a fantastic resource offer to have for the region, Rosie. Thank you very much. And yeah, Tim Draycott, who was a keynote at last year's SimNet conference, has got a number of sort of sound bites about funding and business cases, and he always says something. I'll misquote him now and upset him, but it's something like, "It would be wonderful if funding came before the work, but actually funding always follows the work that you've done. The funding follows results," which is an irony of business cases. But maybe that's just a superficial look. Okay, thank you all. I'm looking around. I don't see any more hands up.
Andy,
So,
sorry, there's Sarah, and then I think there's Paul.
oh, thank you. Thanks very much. Sarah, then Paul, then. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm Sim Fellow at East Surrey Hospital. The last one I joined was really good, and I got a bit of support in my new role. And at that time, I had mentioned that I was about to get a Sim Tech. So we've gotten her now, and she's on board here. She's at this meeting. But we're needing a little bit of support with her, and I was wondering if she could join a unit. I know I had sent an email, I think, to Paul at some point to say, have you got a WhatsApp group? Have you got something that could just help to support us? But that's not the main reason for this. The question I want to ask is ASL 5000. I discovered it in our box or in our store. I brought it out and I've been trying to polish it and use it. And I thought it was all okay when we had a KSS ICU SIM day, but it totally messed up. And part of what I was trying to do was to find out if anybody is using it, especially for the anesthetic or ICU type SIMs, because I would really love some support with respect to that.
Can you just repeat for me, Sarah, what is the piece of kit you're talking of?
ASL 5000. So it's supposed to be an artificial lung that's by Ingmar.
Ah.
And I think a couple of places got it around COVID because it was supposed to help with ventilatory settings and training around that, which a normal SIM man cannot do.
Yeah.
Right. I think someone's mentioning that Royal London had it. Zoe, yeah. I would love to have any links with anybody there who can help me with that. That's all right.
Yeah, hi Sarah. Sorry, Zoe here. Yeah, I can put you in touch. I used to be the lead there, so I can put you in touch with a guy called Dan Richardson, who is like the digital technology fellow. He's got lots of experience of using the ASL.
Perfect. Okay. I did find out that even the people that had it were not using it, so it's great to know that someone's using it somewhere.
Yeah, it's great for anesthetic courses when you want higher sort of lung compliance and things like that, and higher pressures.
Yeah, things like that, exactly.
Okay.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, Paul.
Sure. Yeah, on the previous subject, talking about funding, I had a very interesting conversation this morning, and I think, and I don't know if this helps other trusts. I'm very lucky that apparently our trust is in a quite affluent area, and I've been reliably informed that our charity that's connected to our trust literally has millions of pounds sloshing around, because unlike other hospitals necessarily who get donated thousands of pounds, apparently we get donated houses in our hospital. So I've been reliably informed that, actual fact, as long as I can put they don't want business cases, but they kind of, as long as I can prove that I want some simulation kit that enhances the education that we are currently delivering, apparently I've got a good chance of getting it. So I'm going to trial that. Literally, I've only had this conversation this morning, but I think it's worth other trusts, if you are trying to look at funding streams for your simulation service, to actually investigate about whether you have a charitable service.
It's a really good point, Paul. And when I was in Nottingham working for a living, the charitable trust for the hospital, for the trust, was very helpful to us on several occasions. Sarah.
Hello, I put in the chat, I introduced myself earlier on. So I'm the new simulation lead for Sussex Community Foundation Trust. It's a new position. They haven't had anyone in that position before. So I'm setting everything up from scratch in regards to simulation, in regards to policies, documentation, things which need to be underpinned. Just seeing if there's anyone else here who are from another community trust, or who might be able to, I can link up with, who can just give a bit more guidance, because, you know, it was always difficult to start from scratch. It's great if someone can help me, support me on that. That would be brilliant. We're looking at different projects within the trust, but I think it's just the initial starting simulation from scratch in regards to what's underpinning everything. So I appreciate it. I actually put my email address in the chat so people can hang on, be in touch with me. This would be brilliant. I don't want to reinvent the wheel if there's information out there.
Absolutely, we'll do all we can to support you in not reinventing slightly wobbly wheels when there are others available. I can't resist giving you my absolute top tip if you're getting going, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you manage to do. I think it's great for the Sussex Community Foundation Trust to have you in place. My absolute top tip is look to problems you can solve. So don't look at the wow, ignore completely any wow factors around simulation, anything like that, and ask the question, what are the problems that my trust has got that simulation in one form or another might be applied to?
Yeah.
Look at it that way.
Yeah. Yes, that's definitely
the obvious.
Yes, that's definitely one of my remits in tackling it from that way. And I could totally agree with you. It's not the going out there and getting the, you know, £100,000 equipment if it's then not used. It's seeing what's needed and then seeing what equipment is to match. But that'll be great. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Keep an eye on the chats there, because Chrissy Goodban is in Sussex and reaching out to you in the chat.
Thank you.
Okay. Jane has a hand up.
Yeah, I had two bits actually. One was hi again, Sarah. So there was a bit about we're very conscious with primary care that you're in a slightly similar but slightly different position in community care, that you know, you're doing things that are different, they're not traditional. So as Rosie said, I do run the primary care, or I'm one of the chairs of the primary care special interest group, but it is a primary care, social care, community care. So we're really keen to kind of basically scoop up everybody who doesn't fit within that kind of traditional sort of setup. So that's one offer. You'd be very welcome to kind of join us with that, and that would be brilliant, because we'd also like to look at how we work together so we don't all sit in isolation. The other is KCHFT have also approached me because they're also very similar stage to you. So I'm not sure they can necessarily help, but it might be helpful to put you in touch with them. So I can, you know, if you're happy, I can link you in with them and you can have some conversations as well.
That'd be great. Thank you very much. You've got my email address because we have been in touch.
Yes.
Thanks, Jane. Been a couple of face-to-face team meetings, but that'll be great. Thank you. Appreciate this. Thank you.
And then my last bit was coming to what Paul was sort of saying, and I could see Kathy shaking her head at the same time, because I think that just really reiterates or kind of reinforces to me what the difference is between primary care and special care. You know, we're not a trust. we don't have millions of money. We are talking, I'm even struggling to find pennies at the moment. I mean, we are desperate. So I suppose my plea there would be, you know, traditionally there have been really lovely big budgets that have gone into simulation, which have all gone into trusts. You know, our patients exist outside of hospitals. You know, there's a lot of out of hospital care going on. There's a lot of direction in that way. You know, is there any way that your trust would consider helping us out in the community? Because obviously if we can improve our services and our care, that actually ultimately is also going to impact positively on the trust, and particularly if it's a charity, maybe there's a possibility of doing that. And we don't, you know, our events actually don't cost a lot. So when people talk about budgets, actually our budget is relatively small. And again, that's also sort of where I kind of get, yeah, overly emotional about it. So again, you know, we can do simple stuff with not very much money that is very good quality. So we do high fidelity simulation using low fidelity equipment and kit, but with good faculty.
Yes, definitely. And we'll continue the conversation with Sandy as well of a couple of weeks ago, because there's collaboration there between the Sussex community and with you guys to do some mixed training and simulation delivery at GP surgeries to also bring in district nursing as well. So we'll continue that. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, everybody. Jackie, I'm going to come to you in a moment, and I'm looking forward to hearing about the latest tranche of MPF work and the work that you've been piloting for NHS England on simulation evaluation. It's also relative to business cases. So I'm going to ask for Jackie to step up to the mic.
Okay, thank you, Andy. I'm just gonna share my screen. I'm gonna give it a go. I think it will work. I've had problems recently, so I'll start sharing my screen and move forward with an update. It's nice to see some friendly faces out there, and I see Sandy, who is one of our multi-professional sim fellows as well, so it's lovely to see you. And so I'm getting a lot of flashing as I try to put my, oh, okay, maybe it's working now. Lovely. So can everybody see that? Andy, can you see that?
We can see that, Jackie.
Fab. Lovely. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to share on the Multi-Professional Simulation Fellowship Programme, and I'll be inviting Rosie at times maybe to come in too, because we've worked collaboratively together now for, gosh, it'll nearly be 3 years, Rosie, that we've been working on the fellowship. So it's a partnership that has been between NHS England and Brighton Sussex Medical School. It was initially supported and funded by Health Education England, and I have been running another pathway, which is I would describe more as a generic pathway. So it has a broader address to many other key priorities, as well as embedding simulation-based education. But the programme to date, specifically for the multi-professional sim fellowship, is that we've recruited 23 fellows, and they've targeted key priorities that really have enabled and enriched, we hope, local and regional clinical provision. And we're now even extending to some national priorities, because we've become we've become of great interest to other areas and sectors of England. And as Andy, as you kindly say, the fellows have actually contributed as well a little bit towards a national tool kit that's just being piloted. So I'll talk a little bit more about that near the end of my presentation. But the overall aim, like everybody here today, is about the benefits that we can provide to our patients, to the systems, and also to the workforce. across the region, and how we can sustain these changes against the type of work or projects that we are funding. How can we enable them to survive and continue? And I think that's one of our passionate visions for this particular programme, and has been a constant focus in discussions and debates. The 5 key priority areas that I talk about are the following, and these of course have changed over the years or deviated or been added to, but the core aims at the time were very much about developing clinical practice. There's also areas around differential attainment, which was linking again towards the workforce recruitment, you know, in particular areas, making sure there is equity and trying to open access and promote interest to come and work in the NHS, and also, of course, some of our newer professional groups, such as associates, physician associate groups, trying to build capacity in some of these new roles. And then, of course, a key area that we're all interested in and all passionate about, of course, is the simulation-based education, which has been built upon as well and embedded against technology-enhanced learning ideology, AI that Rosie spoke about briefly in her presentation, and also then a key focus on digital skill too, which has become quite radical in terms of virtual reality. And a key pathway for all is the leadership development pathway. And some of you may also be familiar with another fellowship that is funded, which is the Leadership Educational Fellows. And these fellows tend to be recruited for the medical profession. And again, multi-professional fellowship empowers all allied healthcare professionals to have the same access. So if there was a need, for example, for a fellow, they'd be able to perhaps work towards a leadership type project, but also be given the opportunity to study. So what does it look like? I suppose here I wanted to demonstrate the building capacity. I just want to go back. Sorry, I just want to check because that sort of jumped along there. So what does this look like across the Southeast region? Well, where we've been successful, and certainly now for 2024 and as we move forward, initially the previous fellowship funding focused on Kent, Surrey and Sussex. Meeting Rosie, we then worked together as a partnership where we embedded this ideology of simulation fellowships across the 8 counties. So the 8 counties of the Southeast NHS England region. This is then allowed for more ambition, if you like, for further development, change and delivery. And I'll talk more about that when I come to share some of the project work that the fellows have been doing. But the core aims really have been to provide a clear focus on patient care, look at practice development and systems-facing systems of projects, and thinking about how they have a real existence. So unlike other fellowships, these projects are directed and navigated by the needs of the service. There will be a lot of interview or consultation with senior executives or stakeholders where Rosie and I meet colleagues to really get a concrete project, something that is really going to have an impact and have an output for the service as much as it will for the region and for the fellow. So strong partnerships have been developed, and we've expanded these partnerships too with industry, working in all sorts of clinical areas, working with different partners, working with integrated care boards, local authority, and thinking about what that means for each of these individual partners or stakeholders around the sustainability element and shared working. And the shared element, again, is across the region. Sometimes we're now looking at shared services, sharing the ideas, as some of you colleagues today have just been sharing and asking for support and help and networking. That's the aspiration that we have for this fellowship. And really the exciting elements around transformation for education experiences, but transformation for simulation-based education. So the ongoing achievements then, if you like, between this partnership of Brighton Sussex Medical School and NHS England, Kent, Surrey and Sussex and South East has been that we have managed to recruit a range of professional specialities within the fellowship. That's why it's called multi-professional. And it gives this approach where there is a consistent opportunity to develop fellows, but to allow shared practice, share ideology, shared perspectives, shared learning. And this again contributes, one hopes, to ensure safety, quality and effectiveness. I'll come back to the projects, and I've already muted about the fact that they're system facing. But the importance as well of this fellowship is that it's established a learning journey for each fellow. They have access to an extensive portfolio of master programmes, but we also give consideration. So the funding for studies, although we may say, well, you can do a postgraduate certificate, we would look at each fellow individually so that we can really make good use of the CPD that we're offering and make good use of the funding. And again, sustaining change in the healthcare environment. So the building capacity then is really this range of themes that have come about. The fact that the capacity building has increased immensely for simulation-based education. Here I am today sharing these opportunities and sharing this fellowship, but it's also working with Andy, working with Rosie, working with Jane, so that we can build capacity in key areas. Primary care, as Jane shares with us, perhaps hasn't been as recognised or given the same opportunities. But when I look at the list, Jane, we've done extremely well over the last couple of years with having 6 multi-professional fellows, and hopefully for 2024 we can continue that partnership. We've also developed digital learning a lot more. So there's 1 or 2 fellows that are actually deviating slightly from the perhaps traditional simulation-based education project, but looking at digital learning.
My name is Sarah, and I got my invoice yesterday.
Oops, so somebody's coming in online. And I can't help with invoices. But other key areas that I'm passionate about as well is around mental health and psychiatry. We've had some excellent projects that aren't necessarily by disciplined professionals in those areas. It's about that transition, that sharing, that crossover. And we've also done some great work with emergency care across the fellowships, where we have key players such as James Barber, but we've had other colleagues too that have presented working on other areas around emergency care, such as CCAM ambulance service. I'm currently doing a project on the call service, the call centre, 999 calls. We've recently did a project also around suicide prevention for individuals working in emergency care. So these are really, impact, serious, important projects. And again, I'm delighted to say that we're introducing new colleagues. So again, from Canterbury Christchurch, we have operating department practitioner who's joined us this year. And we've had health scientists. And for the future, and I may now just bring Rosie to pop in here, we're looking at new types of areas and new roles. Rosie, do you want to add anything here?
Yeah, absolutely. Because my overall vision with this piece of work, this program, was that we did have every profession, if you like, that worked together in a network that worked in symbiosis, so greater than the sum of its parts, if you see what I mean. So I want to sort of look around and tackle those areas that we haven't yet thought of, like dentistry, or where else will we go? All sorts of things.
Neurodiversity.
Yeah, neurodiversity was suggested. So we're trying to sort of plug those gaps so that we've got everyone covered, and that, eventually we keep everybody's projects and publications and all that kind of thing as a group, as a network, as a Southeast strategy type thing that we can share nationally, globally, whatever. But, I couldn't be more proud of it. It's brilliant. Thank you, Jackie.
Lovely. Thank you. And so this sort of lends itself to another outline really of a sample of our first cohort. And we'll be celebrating, as already Rosie has said, and I've also integrated into my slides, and I'll say today, that we are having a wonderful celebration of success for the fellowships. And key stakeholders are invited to thank them as well and to celebrate their success, because without that we wouldn't be able to survive and embed all this excellent work. And I have shared these slides to Andy, so I'm happy for them to be shared to the group, and you'll be able to then spend time to read the type of project titles that we've been very fortunate to disseminate. Primary care, for example, Jane, as you know, we've had some excellent projects. You know, we had a GP who was looking at postnatal distress, but looking at that in terms of simulation and how it can be embedded into early medical training, and then look at it in a more diverse way in terms of shared multi-professional learning. We've had at the moment a second year going forward of a colleague who comes from a health visiting background, where we're now doing some wonderful work around simulation based education. Initially it was around multi-professional working, and we've now built capacity again where we're looking at multi-agency working, and successfully has received some additional funding from the local authority and from the learning and from the sort of the human resource learning and development department. So maybe small pots of money, but again here we're seeing this sort of new way of building capacity, consultancy work. If successful, perhaps there'll be more funding next year, so the project can sustain, it can survive hopefully in its own right. So when I talk to the fellows about programme output evidence, or I'm trying to explain this to stakeholders and their practice supervisors, what we encourage our fellows to do while on this journey, not only to have the opportunity to develop a project in real life, in the workplace, but also to have outputs, individual professional outputs that again can promote and enhance the work they're doing. We've been very fortunate last year at SimNet, where we had a lovely workshop just for the fellows, and we had lots of e-posters, and we were also presented at Reading as well earlier in the year, December, where again fellows were awarded with first, second, third prizes, really feeling part of that wider workforce simulation-based group. And they were able to present their projects and share all the ideas that they have. But encouragement, of course, is around peer-reviewed journals, also looking at outlining their projects in different ways. Reflexivity is very important, and we undertake practice cafes and action learning. So there's a huge resource that's embedded in this journey, as well as students studying or fellows studying on a course, which is their postgraduate certificate in simulation. The actual impact evidence then is more important for the stakeholder, for the line manager, for the director of nursing, medicine. And again, I was at a meeting with 3 other fellows, be it on the generic pathway, where they successfully were invited to the chief exec and executive board, where they presented their project. And their project would have been a scoping review document that was disseminated with future recommendations, and they were given the opportunity to share their good work. And since I've heard, they're now being invited back to act as champions and take forward some of these recommendations. So, you know, it really is exciting work, and I think, you know, for everybody, both for fellows and for the services. Rosie has already shared about our financial contributions that we gratefully received from NHS England and KSS Deanery. And again, Joe Stram, who fully supports this work. But as you can see, we have been very successful. I have a web link at the end, which I would encourage you, you know, do have a look, and it gives you a little bit more detail. But each fellow is provided with some backfill funding. So usually our fellows are already working, they remain in work, but they are given some time out and also time for study and funding for study. And we've successfully received funding so far, and we May, and we're waiting patiently to receive potentially a little bit more. But for the moment, we're projecting that we may be able to recruit a further 8 fellows from next October. In total, then, we have, with my other pathway, the generic pathway, have up to 60 fellows now, multi-professional fellows. So the future steps for 2024 is really that we want to further build on our pan-regional and national simulation-based education development. Rosie again has mentioned that we're very keen to sustain the fellowship community, and we will be working towards developing a fellowship directory. This is one, to embrace the fellowship, the fellow themselves, to acknowledge the trusts and the communities of which they've been supported, to share the good work and the new clinical expertise, academic expertise, research expertise, but so that we can have that networking that continues across the region. And finally, once again, just in case you've forgotten, we are celebrating the Multi-Professional Fellowship on the 14th of March. So this slide I've put here because it was something I embedded in an evaluation report that we do have to record and report back, you know, as governance back to NHS England. And these are some of our indicators, a bit more of a strategic overview here and what we're thinking in terms of sustainability. This is always in consultation with Rosie and colleagues within the operational group and the executive groups. And one of the things I've highlighted is what Andy also mentioned, was that the fellowship has been asked, or fellows been asked, to support evaluating a pilot tool. Now, it's Professor Bryn Baxendale who's leading on this. There are papers, Andy, I don't know if you can access, but there are papers from the ASPE, because at the moment there isn't any real documentation that can really be shared, but there was a workshop, and there might be some information around the workshop, which is for the public domain. But for the moment, currently, we don't actually have any fixed documentation. However, saying that, the pilot tool, if you like, was around this ideology, and I call this a case example because, again, the multi-professional fellows this year have been asked to pilot the simulation and immersive learning evaluation toolkit against their projects. And we are periodically, and we're soon a mid-review, I've disseminated a survey for the fellows to provide us with a little bit more feedback. And during supervision, when I meet my fellows and my colleague meets hers, we ask as well, again, certain questions. But this sort of evaluation cycle, if you like, is representative of the steps that Bryn has embedded into the simulation and immersive learning evaluation toolkit. And I suppose, like any project management tool, framework, or any change management tool, there are key sections from beginning to end. And to simplify, really, it's about, you know, thinking about the design of the project, the title of the project, who would the fellows consult with, the purpose of it, how have they got an evaluation strategy, are they thinking about evidence-based practice, etc. And so some of the initial feedback as a case example of how our fellowship is extending even further now across the national nation is that feedback from the application to projects, so from October to January, kindly fellows provided some of this feedback, how it helped and assisted perhaps getting the right question. Again, I'm really emphasising that this work as a fellowship, it's not just an academic exercise. It's really not like a dissertation. It's a much larger scale project that many fellows on this journey are also learning step by step what it means to be a project manager. Here, of course, as well, they say that it's helpful to help them approach the project, how to structure it, how to think about the support and the resources that they need. Again, interestingly as well, they think about how the kit can guide their thinking, so the cognitive ability that's required on some of these projects, and thinking about the intensity of simulation projects. What I think we hope is, by feeding back now to the national team, is that amendments can be made, but also for the framework, this particular evaluation toolkit, how it can be effective, in particular on sim-based education. And finally, again, some commentary here about increasing confidence, how to troubleshoot, you know, how to challenge perhaps thinking about traditionalism and moving towards a contemporary approach to simulation-based education, of course, is important whilst project planning. And finally, these were some little comments around the images that were used in the actual documentation, how data might be collected, thinking about how the interviews are constructed. And there are lots of different sort of diagrammatical processes within the toolkit that you will eventually come across and see when it's more into the public domain, which are quite helpful actually. And they do mirror some of the qualitative or quantitative methodologies that we've all been that we've all grown to love as we've developed in our own academic or professional careers. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much. I hope that's answered some questions and shared for you, Andy, an update on 2024. And you'll see a link here, anybody that wants to access the fellowship programme. The webpage is currently just going through change. We're updating it with new wording, NHS England, etc. But please feel free to contact me or Rosie if you would like to hear more. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Jackie. I think from the moment it started and then the sort of development of this SimTel sort of stream in the much bigger generic project that you've put together, it's had some sentinel moments of excellence in a generally very useful sphere of work. And thank you and congratulations on progress to date.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for presenting it to us. Okay, so Jane's got a hand up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to you, Jane, and then we'll see if there are any responses to that. And then we will take a break, give people a chance to open their shoulders a little bit, step away from the screen, and we'll be on time because I can get us back on time after the break. But so Jane.
No, I was just going to say I feel that having the ability to have the multi-professional fellows has really been able to enable the primary care work to take on a different level, because we've been able to expand our scope of projects, like you say, sort of last year and this year, and it's been, you know, really quite transformative in that. But there was also a bit about what the fellows clearly feel is that it's one of the few things that actually spans lots of different organisations. So they've really formed a community of practice that continues. So that first cohort have really bonded. I can see the second cohort already doing that. And some of those kind of sort of soft things that are really hard to quantify, I think they've also got really long-reaching consequences. So people understand each other's roles, each other's organisation, your primary care, under secondary care, community, social, all of those sort of things as well are really, really lovely to sort of see. And I think across the sort of KSS or now sort of southeast region, I think that will have benefits that we see for, you know, a long time hence. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Jane, for that. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you both. Thank you all. And been some interesting conversations along the way. It's 3:25. I'm going to ask us to take 10 minutes. Is 10 minutes okay for everybody? Just a chance to stand up for a minute or two, comfort break, open your shoulders, get the cricks out your neck, and we will recommence at 4:25 in 10 minutes time.
And Andy, I'm going to leave now, so I'll see you again, and thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. I always enjoy getting a few of the creaks out of my shoulders for a minute or two away from the screen. The program post-break is that I'm going to give you a very brief update on an initiative we have regionally for some simulation for maternity. I'm going to just remind you, as if reminder were needed, for the Simulation for Safety conference, point out a couple of things about that. Then I'm coming to you. I'm delighted that we have best part 30 people in the meeting, and offer you the chance to just report on work that you're doing, maybe challenges and barriers that you're having with work that you would like to be doing, and plans for the future and opportunities for other people. Come and visit your simulation work, or could you visit them? That's what I want to hear from you. So going to the regional initiative for maternity simulation, we had hoped that the obstetric lead for this, who is Anita Banerjee, would be able to join us, but she's working clinically. So I'm just going to very briefly summarize what we're trying to do. So this is something that Joe Schramm, the postgraduate dean for KSS, asked us to take a careful look at. And our intention is to deliver 3, possibly 4 days of half-day sessions, each for 16 people, to provide them with simulation faculty skills in a multidisciplinary team, an interprofessional working. And Anita's aspiration is that this will be the Southeast region part of a multi-region project, and we might well be the opening bat of that multi-region project. And what we'll be doing is using simulation to investigate team skills in obstetric emergencies, and with the purpose of creating a sustainable simulation faculty, or adding to supporting that obstetric or maternity simulation faculty. So I hope that in each of these half-day sessions, 6 to 8 midwives, 4 obstetricians, an anaesthetist, and maybe somebody from critical care or the emergency department would participate, supported by a faculty. We bring all the resources, if you like, and we'll be keeping a careful eye on how that can impact on practice and on a sustainable simulation development. So that's that. And as I say, Anita is leading on that. That's my summary of it. And now I want to turn to the Simulation for Safety conference. The website is absolutely delicious, simnetsoutheast.com. The abstract deadline draws ever closer. It's February the 14th, and with a spooky coincidental factor, whether this has got anything to do with me being on the scientific committee for the ASPE conference, I'm not sure, but our abstract deadline is February the 14th, and abstracts for ASPE, the national conference, open at the end of the month. So you've got the perfect opportunity now to have a go at submitting an abstract for the regional conference, and then take your learned skills in abstract writing for ASPE from February and March on. So the overall plan for the simulation conference is that there will be a pre-conference session. I'm determined that this will be based on an escape room program, and the idea is that as travellers arrive from near and far across the region, hopefully we'll be there at the start of the escape room, but if you arrive after that, it'll be designed so you can join in with the activities, and the escape room activities will be followed by the gala dinner, which is currently filling up very fast, I will tell you, and it takes place in, if you look at the pictures of the venue, it takes place on the top of that big red pod thing in the middle of the building. So that'll be a different place to have a pre-conference dinner. The conference itself is full of interesting items. I am polishing the program to get it published soon. I can tell you that the exhibition hall is full to bursting with exhibitors. All the main players will be there, and we've changed the program, so there's only going to be one. This is based on your feedback, your evaluation and feedback on previous conferences. There's only going to be one keynote, so Dr. Dawn Benson will send us away enthused at the end, but previously we've had 3 keynotes. The other 2 keynote sessions are going to be replaced now by a little bit more networking time and a maritime simulation workshop type event. So Solent University is home to the Wabash Maritime Simulation Centre, and I'm in consultation with their faculty right now about how we can look at cross-cutting learning between maritime simulation and simulation for health and care. So I think that's going to be quite interesting. And the other session is going to be a brief session which we're calling Ask the Deans. And that's where I'm going to come to next, because I'm looking for hands up in a moment to just ask for what sort of things. If you had, Peter Anderson is the Associate Dean for East Kent, and he is your Simulation Dean. Joe Schramm is the Post Dean for Kent, Surrey and Sussex, and we're hoping Helen Hyam and Matt Williams will also be at the conference, and we're going to have a Ask the Deans type session. So I'm wondering, if you had a panel of your deans in front of you, what would you like to ask them? And I'm throwing that open for thoughts and comments. They don't need to be formal. They don't need to be particularly politically correct at this moment. What would you like to ask your deans, given the opportunity at this conference? Rosie.
Hiya. Well, I'm anticipating that funding will be a key one. Whether we'll be able to answer it or not, I don't know. But, you know, I think if we can try and find out as much as we possibly can, either way, you know, well, that's at the forefront of my mind, because that's what we need to get the brilliant stuff, you know, operationalized.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sound like a stuck record, and I suppose moving on from that, it's the funding, but also that the funding not actually, well, I suppose proportionally equitable. So that obviously all of those deans that you've mentioned are all based in secondary care. They've all got a background in anaesthetics, I think, have they not?
Well, I think you could say critical care very safely. Yeah.
Critical care. Yeah, and obviously that's the background that simulation has potentially had in the past, but that's not the background that simulation has now. And there's a lot of direction of travel which is looking at ensuring we look at the whole scope of healthcare, and that includes what we're seeing today, isn't it? Colleagues coming from community trusts and things like that as well. So how do we make sure that they have access? How do we make sure social care have access? And how do we maybe drive the ICBs to recognise that this is something that they need to invest in and isn't just a trust-based activity?
Thank you, Jane. Yes, you're talking to knocking on an open door to a certain extent, but that's not to say I have any better access to funding to do with that. I think that I'm going to try and find a way to build into the programme an aspect at this conference which is about the breadth of simulation for health and care now, and we'll find a way to do that. We are going to have more networking opportunities at the conference. So we've taken out 2 keynote talks, replaced them with maritime simulation, a brief Ask the Deans, and a little bit more networking time. So I'm still thinking about how that will work. And if people have any suggestions, so this is my ask to everybody at this meeting. You've got my email address. You've got the generic simulation email address, which is ksssim@canterbury.ac.uk. Send us your ideas, thoughts for questions for the deans, and send us your ideas, thoughts for how we could support the sort of networking that you want to do. Do you want me to give you a room and you can put, I do community sim on the door, and you can have your meeting with people who want to network with you, whatever. Give that all some thought, please. Right, I seem to have stunned everybody into silence, which, is,
and also, Andy, I think in absence of funding, say we don't have that answer at that time, maybe we should have a discussion about sustainability and sharing, which I know is a subject very close to your heart. But, perhaps that can be, instead of the silence of, oh, no funding, perhaps we can talk about, be creative in how we keep things going.
Yeah, I agree, Rosie. And something that pops up regularly but is difficult to actually achieve is people are interested in networking practically, in the sense of visiting other simulation centres. I guess the primary challenge to this is just the amount of spare capacity that there isn't at the moment. For people to give up half a day to go to another simulation faculty and see how they do it. Maybe something similar, and it may be something completely different. Okay, well, I'm going to move on. And as I say, do feel free to email me if you have thoughts afterwards. ksssim@canterbury.ac.uk. And I'm now going to ask around this meeting if people would offer us a brief report, a brief oral report on work that they are engaging in or wish to talk about, it's over to you. This is the open floor round robin reports. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Amoy, welcome.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
So my name's Amoy. I work at Canterbury Christchurch University. I'm a lecturer here in the operating department practice team. And I specifically specialize in teaching clinical practice and simulation. And I've also got the luxury of being a multi-profession fellow on the multi-professional fellowship that Jackie Knight was presenting earlier on in simulation. And currently I'm conducting a project that focuses on a learning tool for healthcare students, which focuses on a C-section simulation, which involves multi-professions, such as an obstetrician, an anaesthetist, and ODPs, the different roles they play within the perioperative environment. The purpose of my project is to showcase the ODP profession while also emphasizing the importance of teamwork and collaborative working and the interprofessionalism that goes aligned with my project. That's what I'm working on currently. And in the future, I do plan to showcase this project in conferences, and there's also adding on to this project a wider range, and then going into PhD and doing a PhD in simulation, also publishing as well, and also putting my profession out there, whilst also emphasizing in multi-professionalism. Thank you. And I want to thank Andy. Jackie's gone already. I want to thank Andy because he's been a good source of help and guidance in my project and profession as well.
Oh, that's kind of you to say, Amoy. It's a pleasure. I think it's a really interesting project to try and create a reusable learning resource around operating department practice in a multi-professional team. All working is team working eventually. And it's great that you are one of the next batch of multi-professional fellows. So welcome, and
Thank you.
I admire your aspirations for your career in simulation in the future.
Thank you very much. It's nice to meet you all.
Just looking at the names, I can see we've got Debbie from Maidstone. I'm coming out to Maidstone next Friday for simulated patient training. I'm looking forward to that. I'm really thrilled about the new training course that we've designed, and it'd be really interesting to engage with that and find out how you find it.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Amoy.
We briefly met at the ASPE conference. I'm also the link lecturers for ODP students that come to Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells. So yeah, looking forward to hear your
Just
project.
To introduce everybody, I'm also an ODP by background, but I now run Sim for Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells, for those of you that don't know me. So hello, everybody. Yeah, looking forward to doing the simulated patient course on Friday with Andy, very much so. Currently rummaging around in my cellar for props. I think we've found some crutches and a couple of walking sticks and some bits and pieces to bring in. So yeah, should be a fun day. Good day for learning.
Excellent. Kate.
Hello, Andy. I just wanted to put out some feelers, really, nothing formal, but obviously our nursing programs are going to be revalidating over the next couple of years, and we're looking to grow our simulation activity. And I just wanted to really try and get our trust partners on board with how we develop our sim and engage with them much more collaboratively going forward. So I just wondered if anyone's interested out there, if you want to ping me an email, kate.brown@canterbury.ac.uk. I may be looking to organise a symposium in the summer for us to start maybe some collaborative activity. So looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kate. Yeah, I would recommend to people that they get involved. There's always an immense amount of churn, I find, in simulation faculty and activity. There are some people who go into simulation and never leave it. I'm looking around the room I'm in trying to find somebody, but I can't find somebody like that. However, although I've been in simulation full time since 2004, I've had a succession of different jobs like that. And my experience is that there's a considerable amount of churn in simulation because it develops it gives you a platform to move into a number of different directions. It's a very broad church for development.
I think I'll just reiterate that means people from primary care as well as hospital partners and stakeholders. So we're interested in growing all forms of simulation across all healthcare settings. So we'd be interested to hear from anyone who's interested. Thanks.
Yeah, good point. Well made. And it's continues to be necessary to make it. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on talking just for a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to close this meeting. I'm going to think about a way to make this round robin bit a little bit more formal and a little bit more structured in the future. See if I can entice a few more of you out of the woodwork. But for now, I'm just continuing to look around the room to see if anybody's putting a hand up or has anything to say, anything to add, and then we will close the meeting. I was going to close with, what was I going to say? I was going to say something really dramatic. I think it's incredible that we've got 25 people together for this meeting. There used to be like 6 to 8 of us gathered in a room back with Ali Bakara and myself. Okay, folks, so thanks for your attendance. We've had a look round the Advanced Procedural Skills Centre. We've discussed the launch of the maternity simulation project. We've talked about the multi-professional fellows with Jackie Knight. We've had our update from Rosie, who's the regional program lead for simulation, patient safety and TEL. And I've reminded you of the Simulation for Safety conference. I am eager to see your abstracts for e-posters, short presentations, and for workshops. Brilliant. Okay. Thank you all very much for attending. Look forward to seeing you in the future. Look forward to seeing you in May. Rosie.
I was just waving goodbye, but wanted to say great meeting. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't,
Okay. Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Toby. Okay.